Everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Appreciate y'all being on. Well, go and get that intro changed. You keep staying on here with me, Kurt.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah, I talked to Armando today. He's the technical genius with all that, so he's going to swap it up.
I have yet to
But
meet Armando, man. I keep hearing about him.
yeah, he's okay. That guy, I like him. So you been on the water lately, man? We were talking before, but we didn't talk about that.
I have not. The past week or so, I have not been able to get out on the water. I
Man,
got a little trip coming up here where I'm going to head down to a couple days and go down to Cumberland and fish the tailwaters of Cumberland Lake here. So I'm changing the oil in my car. I cleaned it out. I'm just getting all my stuff ready to go down there for just fun fishing. No tournaments, no nothing.
damn. Last weekend, I took my son to a little stock pond my friends have, and we had fun. This weekend, we have the Alabama State Kayak Championship. It's the top 10 from each club get invited from across the state. It's on Lake Weiss, but it's an Alabama State Championship, but it's going to be one in Georgia. Like the boundaries are so far into Georgia that, and there's also like the Alabama Bass Trail, which somebody's going is one boat wins 100 grand in that, so it's a big deal here in Alabama. But it's like
Cool.
150 boats on the same lake on the same weekend, so it's going to be a crap show. But yeah,
It's going to be
everybody will be in a
intense.
creek.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be something. All right, but the reason we're having this show is to bring on the man himself, Steve Owens. What's up, man?
Hey man, how y'all doing?
Good. You looking all professional, buttoned down.
From here up, I told you I was on those other meetings this morning, and I sat down and I was like, well, I got all my stuff in order, and I had like I got an old Packers shirt I've had for literally 22 years,
Well,
and yeah, and it's my shirt, man, And Packers suck, so I was sitting there with it sitting on, and I was like, oh heck, man, I gotta. So I just grabbed a shirt out of the closet, and threw it on. So yeah,
well done,
not
sir.
not trying to impress by any means. I was just yeah.
So what's going on in your world besides the bass stuff? You have anything else going on? Well, I mean, I say that I know you have everything going on.
Yeah, like I was just listening to y'all. You asked Kurt. I actually got to fish a little bit at the end of the Susquehanna event. My buddy Kuth and I stayed around and fished one day, and we caught a decent amount of fish. I'd fished way earlier in the week with Jack Harshman, and we caught, I don't know, about a dozen apiece, but they were all like 12, 13 inchers. And
Hmm.
but it blew my mind. Like, obviously fishing in a river, everything feels more substantial because it's in current. But man, every 12, 13 incher I caught, I thought was a 17, 18 incher. And then we
Those fish
fished
are big.
Monday, and yeah, they are. And it's like we judged fish, 18-inch fish that had like this much between the dorsal fin and the tail lobe. That's all there was. There's this much tail and this much body. It was just it's the weirdest thing I ever saw. But yeah, so I got to do that, man. And I had to drive down to dugout yesterday to work some. And on the way down, looking at the foliage changing here like it was up there, all I could think about was, man, I could go back to Susky next week if I wanted to, because I work from home. My wife's on a big long stretch run in an outage at the nuke plant here. So I was like, dude, I could go back. That's all I could think about all day long was, do I
Hmm.
want to be so bold to tell her I'm leaving for 4 days to go fish? But yeah, I'm probably not going to do it. But
And that event, man, congrats on that because y'all hit it like right at the perfect time, right? When at day two there was like what 15 bags over 90 inches on day two, something like that.
yeah, it was something like that. It was nuts. Just we got lucky. We avoided the tornado barely just by a few miles on Gunnersville pre-fishing y'all work. Kurt, I know you were down here too. And man, but after that, man, the fishing even was good then. We had a lot of, a 90-inch bag is a great tournament bag. I mean, people
Yeah.
get spoiled like, well, man, it's going to take close to 200. If you're in the 180s, that's a successful freaking tournament, for 2 days.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, but we did, man. Like the anglers, I was joking about, everybody knows Barry Davis. He was like, yeah, I know. I'm definitely going to catch a limit here, but it's going to be 14 inches. And, it was just, we were cutting up about it. And of course, everybody, like I told Garrett and them last night, was, how tournaments are. Man, you should have put it here. You should have put more shade trees on the bank so I could fish it, and just, it's all that kind of stuff. And it's cool. I like cutting up, carrying on about it. And, but that tournament, everybody was like, man, the cold front's coming in and it's going to rain and I just don't know what it's going to do. And in my mind, I'm thinking where we live. I'm like, hell yeah. I mean, that's what you smallmouth. You
Yeah.
want nasty weather, but I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to affect anybody's mentality, of like, getting ready to go. Not that that's any advantage, but I'm just, sensitive to that. But it turned on. Like people talk about rivers being majestic and having this magic aura to them or aura to them. And dang, if I don't believe it now, just watching that lake transition in the 5 days I was up there was freaking awesome. Yeah. So I can't wait to get back. Obviously, we're going, as you'll see in a little bit, we're going back different time of year, but it was awesome, man. The people up there were phenomenal. It's a new chamber, tourism bureau, tourism group that came on board that was unfamiliar for fishing. And it took about 3 months to develop that relationship last year because they were all brand new to it, had no
Yeah.
insurance to cover anything like that. And now, like literally, that last TVKA we had on Gunnersville, Daniel, that
Hmm.
you didn't fish at Destin and them did, but one Joe McElroy one. They called me while I was on the phone pre-fishing. We only had like 30 anglers registered for Susky at the time, and it was like June or something, maybe even earlier. And man, they were over the moon because they'd been clicking on all you guys' social media stuff and just looking at what we do. And then they started following the events we had during the year. And then I've given them some angler stuff to click on, and just they saw the buzz about Susky on the Bassmaster Kayak page. So they right then and there, we'd already had a 2-year verbal agreement. They went ahead and wanted to sign the contract way back then. And we had 30 people registered. So that was the community winning right there. You guys did that, not me or anybody else. The kayakers did that for us. So that was pretty awesome.
Cool. And I saw you got an autopilot. I know you've always been a Hobie guy, but now you have an autopilot too.
Yeah, I got both. I
Yeah,
love,
living the
a
dream, man.
Hobie. So the Hobie, in my opinion, is the most efficient kayak you can fish out of. It just, I'm talking about just bare bones pedal drive. It's so efficient. I love fishing out of it. And then when we brought in Old Town at Dugout, I obviously had to familiarize my stuff with all that. So I got in an Old Town autopilot, and I can just see where that's going to do good for me. Fishing in current, I have a Newport on my Hobie, and we got access to Torpedoes, which are amazing too. Um, and I could put a motor guide on the front of my Hobie, but that's something about that Old Town. It's a different kind of stability, obviously, than a Hobie, but
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm excited to get it out on the ledges and spot lock because living on Chick, believe it or not, I mean, I fish bass boat tournaments on ledges, but I don't do it in my kayak just because you constantly have to twist and move your rudder and then course correct. And it's just, now I can cast in long line, but then you get the appearance of trolling. So I don't do that either. I mean, who am I fooling? I don't get to fish tournaments anymore, so I'm excited to get that autopilot out, and we've started the sales of that brand have picked up quite a bit in our area, and it's just something else because we've rigged Old Towns in the past. We helped, we rigged Jimmy McClurkin's one year, and when we saw that, we were like, oh, man, this is hard because we're not familiar with them. And so I got one, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a slow build on it. I don't want to just do a boom, here's a 25 grand dugout build. I don't want to do that. I don't because I'll just be flat honest with you. As many people as I know this many people who could afford to go buy a $25,000 kayak rig. We sell a lot of them, but it's the people that I've never met.
Yeah.
So I want to do what you call the paycheck build. Like first thing I want to do is put, the nav lights on it. And then I want to add the beefier catch product rail attachment tracks because we need
The
it
metal ones.
because
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yep. Because that's where I've got a Garmin 12 and a Humminbird 10 I'm going to put on it. but it's going to be a progression. So then my next thing are going to be my Yak Attack Zuka tube for my rod. And I'm, just do it that way, because something I've learned with the Bassmaster Kayak Series and the Bass Nation stuff, there's so many people jumping into tournaments that literally just bought their kayak 2 weeks before a dang tournament, never fished a tournament. We had people, the Logan Martin way back when, that first one, I wish I had the picture. It's gone because I asked Dwayne to try to find it on Tourney X, but I can't remember the angler's name because it was a denied fish. I don't know how he did it, but he took a freaking 4-pounder and got it stuffed in a tourney tag. And it looked like me wearing a cummerbund or something. It was just,
Belly shirt.
Yeah. And so, we've had anglers, and thankfully, we didn't have, as far as like DQs and stuff go, they all got handled quick when they needed it. But as far as fish penalty and stuff, some crack mouths. We have one tournament, a brand new guy on Lake Hartwell. In the first couple of hours, he probably had about 90 inches, and all his fish were facing backwards.
Oh.
Dude was a hammer. So he rebounded, cut back around, had 4 fish. If he would have had a 12th fish, he'd have probably had close to another 90-inch limit. No identifier. So right there, 180 inches just about, this dude got DQ'd. And man, of course, he was mad, and I can't blame him. But man, it's a learning curve, and he got it, and he came back and fished more. But
he'll never forget that stuff, though, right? He's never going to forget his
No.
identifier. He's always going to know how to place the fish correctly.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
like
still
you guys
like,
know.
I fished a yakking grass this year on Gunnersville, and I would have won, but I didn't have the identifier. I didn't know they needed an identifier. So I mean, it still happens. Luckily, somebody gave me one, and I caught big fish like at the end of the day, so I was at least able to do something. But yeah, that it's easy to make mistakes still.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, we've had, like, I don't like using the word, but our PKAs that, are pros or whatever, the high level travel tournament angler, that's what we'll call them. Literally write the wrong identifier code down. And just, it happens. I mean, it happens. And that's why I learned a lesson from Josh Stewart recently. We were at a ramp. He said, "What's the identifier code?" And I told it to him. It was our cast grassroots stuff. And he said, No, never mind. I was like, "Well, dude, that's what it is." Because, it was my tournament, mine and Daniel's. He's like, No, I got to check it. Well, it's a practice they got into. They don't want you to misspeak. So they go back and find it themselves. And so he couldn't find it. And I said, "Well, your next step to call the tournament director." And here he is. So here's your code. But that's it. That's a good point. And that's something I'd never thought of. Because what if you yell the wrong code to me,
Yeah.
So.
Intentionally. Just kidding.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about the schedule, man. So first, I'll bring it up here. I want to know, like, what was your strategy? Come on, where you at? It's not coming up.
Schedule is looking good, by the way, Steve.
Thank you.
Is it coming up for y'all?
No.
No.
Here, let me. Oh, there it is. I had to have it up on my computer too. So yeah, I'll go ahead and say them all here. You've got February 24th, if you're listening. February 24th, 25th, Lake Murray, Columbia, South Carolina. April 20th and 21st, Possum Kingdom in Texas. May 18th, 19th, Gunnersville in Alabama. July 27th, 28th, Susquehanna and Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. And October 19th and 20th have Caddo Lake and Lake Bistineau and Shreveport. So going into this year, like, I can look at this and I can guess. I mean, here was my thought. You want people to catch some big ass fish. Like, it just seems like it's going to be a slaunch fest all year.
Yeah, that's basically what it was. Is I wanted to, I'd say that's probably third on the list, because first thing I try to look at is geographical area that has anglers to sustain 120 plus or something like that. Then the next is time of year, and then it's the fishery. That's how I look at fishery after that. And I think if you hit 2 out of those 3 things, every angler is going to have a good tournament. And it's cliche, but, and Kurt and y'all know me pretty well. I I don't care where we fish as long as everybody enjoys it. And I know that we're not going to ever reach that goal, but that's the way I look at it. So, you know, I want that angler experience to be, outside of them having a bad tournament because of broken knots or something like that. I want to have checked every box that I could. And, um, when I'm said and done, everybody that I've communicated through leading up to an event, I want them on that Excel sheet. I want to find a way to make it where you can make the tournament as much as I can. And it just so happened as I talked to you all, because I do, like, where would you like to go? What's your top 5? What's this, and this? Want to start out in an area that's good is in the early part of the year is always Florida and Texas. I mean, hell, they got ice storms there now these days in January and February, so I was kind of like, what does it really matter? And then the more I got to do, for instance, the Hobie Bass Open College Series, running it, got to see what some good cold water lakes there are in South Carolina and North Carolina and even in Tennessee. And so that's how we ended up on Lake Murray. I had multiple people say, man, you got to go to Murray when it's cold, because KBF's been there a lot in the past that time of year. And, it's been some pretty decent turnouts with some really big fish. So, and then so as chance would have it, as I'm starting to click around and research this, they actually emailed me because there's a nation event from the boat world, the county over from Columbia. And so she reached out and asked about a kayak tournament. So I was like, yeah, absolutely.
And I've never been there myself, but I was doing some research. It's kind of transitioned, like the Elite Series were there this year, and the lake, it seems like it's kind of transitioned because now it's a blueback herring lake. But I mean, it's obviously a big bass factory, and it's ranked one of the best lakes in the country, and people are going to catch them.
That lake is so much fun to fish. It really is.
Oh, it's awesome.
I'm looking forward to that early season there. Even if cold weather hits, it's deep enough. It has protected areas. I think it's going to fish good no matter what.
Yeah, we were talking to somebody recently, Daniel. Yesterday, I was giving them my mind's eye around 2025 schedule, and it looks like it would be totally different than these power lakes, so to speak. So for instance, it would be like Kurt said, if you go up here and it's 25 degrees, you're not throwing, a spook, possibly. You're because they hit it Del Hollow at 25 degrees, but you might be drop shot in 25, 30 feet of water. And that's what I like about 3 of the 5 of these events. If weather hits hard and it stunts them, because a lot of people overstate, well, there's a cold front coming in tonight. Well, who cares? It affects this much of the water. Now day 2 and 3, as that water circulates, it affects it then, but at the eve of a tournament and everything, that's okay. So, but if something happened in the week leading up to this event and the creeks were blown out or whatever, then you have a backup plan. You can drop back to that 15 foot and do what you need to do, or go 25, 30 foot if their biological clock hasn't moved them up to shallower water yet, or if there's no bait in the area. You got options still, is what I think.
So there's definitely going to be like an early pre-spawn. Maybe they start, moving from super deep up to the middle type stuff. I imagine it's going to be a great forward-facing sonar tournament for people like my buddy Chuck and Bailey, and people that are into that. I don't mean that as a negative. I mean, it seems like that's going to be a great lake for them. Yeah, just all around great tournament.
Yeah, like you mentioned the forward facing sonar. I mean, it's a part of what we all do, and something I've learned through with Jamie Koza and Tom Kazmierski, and I don't think they mind me sharing it because more and more people are doing it. A lot of people turn that off because you can see the effect of your forward facing sonar if you're on top of them sometimes. But using it as a pre-fishing tool, how we use side imaging to scan, you can do the same thing with your forward facing sonar. Put it on 90, 100 foot and just hit about 3 miles an hour. And you can just, it's a huge, huge asset to pre-fishing too.
I never even thought about that. I wouldn't. I had one and sold it. I wouldn't. I was like, I suck at
Yeah.
this. And this year I'm putting
Yeah.
360 on there, and then next year I'll add the live scope back. So that's my
I
plan
use
at
mine
least.
more for pre-fishing, like Steve's talking about,
Yeah.
and just scanning water and identifying sometimes some more of that subtle structure or rocks that you may overlook just using side scan. I use it more for that.
Yeah. I like it for indentions in the grass, because that's an ambush point. And that's so far, I mean, like I recently used it. I've got one of my old jobs. I've got the key to a 27-acre lake over there that nobody can fish. It's private and nobody does fish it. I mean, it got uninterrupted for 20 something years until we all started at the plant going over there together, doing a cleanup. I mean, there's 3 pound crappie in this lake. I mean, and the bass were kind of emaciated because of that. So we started stocking it with thread fin and stuff like that. And now the bass are healthy. There's hydrilla in it. And so I started tweaking my forward facing sonar there. And I saw 3 on a brush pile, and then I caught 2 and lost 1. But what I gained from that because I've had mine for 3 or 4 years and I just used it like literally twice. And so I was like, dude, I got to start using this. I work from home now. I get to fish a lot if I want to. And so I'm going to learn this. And that one day sitting there with Sassy Dan, watching him do what he does on his first day he got to use his on the water. He tweaked it, whatever. Then we go to Possum Kingdom. And the first day of practicing, he goes out there and strokes them, following a bait ball about 3 foot below the surface with it and throwing a spook. And it clicked for him. And then he started fishing docks. Found one dock that probably had 100+ fish on it. He caught like 6 out of there. And I mean, it was just like instantaneous benefit if you've got the mind's eye to read it. And so I decided I'm going all in on it. I've got to learn it. So
Heck yeah. All right. So, second up, talking about Possum Kingdom, got April 20th and 21st. Possum Kingdom out in kind of central West Texas, closer to Abilene, west of Dallas. Obviously, one of the best kayak fishing lakes, kayak lakes in the country, home of the Bassmaster Kayak Series championship, year before last. So, can you tell us about that one?
yeah, and I know. I mean, a lot of people followed it as it was happening, or even after the fact. I've forgotten the number. I had it jotted down, but the amount of 20-inch fish was ridiculous. And people caught them everywhere and in all stages of how they live, which is something I'm noticing watching more tournament fishing and getting more involved behind the scenes and listening to anglers. I don't think seasonal patterns are as big a deal as they used to be, especially with forward facing sonar and stuff. With lake pressure going up everywhere, it's kind of like fish are like, we're getting hammered sitting in this rock pile. Let's get out of here, and they move to something else, But
Yeah.
this part when we get and so we went, later in the year, and as luck would have it, it played out perfectly because when we went, I had no idea that the cigar boats and the ocean yachts. Now that lake, for some reason, is allowed to have ocean yachts on it, and it's not
Huh.
big enough for freaking ocean yachts. It's just not. And so, but everybody survived. We had some jet ski altercations, but there were no issues. But still, it was heavily trafficked, and it's a gorgeous place, beautiful. A lot of dollars live on those docks around that lake too, so they've all got big wake boats um,
Mm.
and so, it was great that we got there when we did because it studded out. But going in April when there's less boat traffic because it's still too cold for jet skis and stuff should be substantially, I don't even want to say better because you can't improve on the limits that these people caught. Um, but it's going to be a lot more enjoyable for the overall field period because you're going to be able to do so much more, I think. But it's a great place. It's a great place to fish. Just like Kurt was talking about earlier, you've got shallow water, you've got deep water, you got rock, you got brush, all kinds of things to do. The area is pretty remote, so when you get there, you're going to have to go ahead and book your your verbos and stuff pretty early. Otherwise, and it's not a big deal. 30-40 minutes out of town, there's areas with hotels and some other lodging. But if you want to stay on the lake, then you better go ahead and get on it now. And it's kind of like Florida. They've got a lot of like single wide trailer rentals stuff going on
Oh,
too,
okay.
which is where we stayed. And it's a great place, good little park. And but yeah, that one there, and they were happy that we came back for that second time. And then they actually said they were waiting on us to call back. But people, as I mentioned, move on from bodies of work and water and jobs, so they just lost contact at Bass. But yeah, I'm excited to get back there. I really am. I mean, Texas anglers will see a lot. We all know that Texas has a great kayak fishing community. They put up numbers, even in the smaller local trails, are far more than we have here, just because of the
Yeah.
geography.
Oh, yeah.
But Duke and them, man, they all run great clubs down there. And he was instrumental in helping us, come back, because I talked to Guillermo and everybody, and I was looking at other lakes and everything, and they were like, man, if the reason we went in June was because to deconflict with a Hobie event. And so AJ and I looked at it, because we work these out together most of the time. And I didn't want you all to have to fish, I think it was, say, Kentucky Lake, and then 2 weeks later drive to Texas. So I spread it out a month, because there was nothing in between. And then that let everybody make it through Mother's Day and Memorial Day and all that. So yeah, we're pumped to get back down there. I am. I can't wait. I want to get down as early as I can so I can poke around and, but I kind of figured out, if I'm going to fish anything, I have to do it after the tournament, because I'd hate to even be out there on Monday and catch 30 pounds of bass and gut hook a 9-pounder. I'd feel bad, because
Yeah.
that's one y'all don't get to catch. So yeah.
Hey, can you kind of talk? I'm guessing you and AJ and Chad, how difficult is it not overlapping each other? I mean,
Impossible.
yeah, I mean, we try to do it in the
Yeah.
state, and all the state clubs, we're in a chat together, and we try to either combine events or not overlap each other. And last year, except for Yak and Grass, we were able to do it where not one single event, not one weekend overlapped with anybody in the state. It's just impossible on the national level, though, right?
Right. And then you have to factor in the big bass splashes, like on Gunnersville. That's there every year. The Spro Frog tournament on Gunnersville. And then here on Possum Kingdom, I about crapped a brick, because I had somebody message me, they got confused. There's a high school championship the weekend before. It's probably going to be 200 boats, but I think some of the kayak world has too much knee jerk reaction to these boat tournaments, because like you mentioned Lake Weiss, and I'm not saying you're overreacting, but like Lake Weiss, 120, 150 boats, that's not ideal, because we want to fish by ourselves, but that's a small amount of number. Like Gunnersville we fished tournaments with 400 plus boat tournaments added
Yeah.
together. Now Gunnersville, 60,000 acres. Why
Yeah.
say
Oh,
it?
yeah.
And same way with Possum Kingdom. So they were confused, because it would suck having 250 high school boats, um, but it's not the weekend we're going. But there is a Hell's Gate annual tournament, but it's 100 boats or less, and they trailer around the lake, so it's not 100 boats blasting off from somewhere. So
Oh, okay.
it's not going to be an issue whatsoever, that stuff. But it is, like AJ and I work a lot, and like, because when you factor in those boat tournaments, and what you also have to factor in, that can never be really public, and there's no reason for it to, but like if Grayford, Texas only had 2 dates, and I'm up against the clock, and that's the only place that's willing to play ball, because budgets get stretched thin quickly. So if they're my third lake I talk to, and they're my last ditch effort, I have to take April the 20th. I just have to, because that's my job. And so thankfully, so far, the last couple of years, anything that we've scheduled that had to be locked in, the other one didn't have a conflict. So we're working right now to go ahead and try to get 25 done together as well, so that, because I want to go to 6 or 7 events, because, I don't like not getting to go to the Midwest or the true Northeast like I'm trying to. But I would just have to keep building it, though, because if I had 2 events right now, then the average we have just gets thinned out. And, we can't do that right now as a community to keep this pro series going, so to speak. We have to have those numbers for people that crunch numbers to see. And,
Yeah.
so, but I do, in my mind's eye, I hope to be able to add 1 or 2 in 25. I don't know if I'm going to get 2, but I'm going to try. If you all show up to all of these and we average doggone 200, then for sure they would absolutely do it. but I want to do that. And so anyway, he and I are working for 25 already to try to make sure we can at least space them out, and let's say, God forbid, we do have, February 25th and 24th, 25th together. Let mine be in South Carolina, and maybe
Different
let's just say
regions, yeah.
let his be on Lake Fork or something. And that's not. I'm just talking in hypotheticals, but that would be perfectly fine because, you know, he may lose 10 or 15 travel anglers that would go to Texas to South Carolina, and I'll probably lose 8 to 10 from Texas that would travel up and fish South Carolina. So it would balance out, hopefully.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
does Bass have a max?
No, it's not capped. No, we haven't.
Okay.
No.
And
Yeah,
what's your goal? Is it kind of 120 for next year? Because it seems like with 5 events, all home runs, big fish, bucket list lakes, like people that lakes are going to actually draw people. Not I'm having a tournament here. I'm going to go fish a bass event, but that too. But I also want to go fish there because it's a great place to fish. Are you expecting? I mean, is your goal like 120 each, or do you have a goal number in mind?
I, my numbers aren't realistic because I get upset if at myself, like I didn't do something, if you don't bring 200 to a lake. And I know
Yeah,
it's not feasible. Daniel's actually, I was kind of bummed because I was looking, man, I'd like to have 180 190 on Susky. And Daniel said, and I was kind of bummed, and he was like, dude, it's freaking October. And I was like, well, I get it, it's the end of the year. And he's like, I'm gonna give you a little bit of advice. I said, what's that? He said, shut the F up. He said people are out of vacation. They fished all year long. Kids are back in school. Hunting's going on. And so and so I am. I'm proud that we had, pushing 150 up there. And by no means am I sad sobbing at all. I mean, we had a great season. Attendance was up like 85%. And we had
wow,
500 unique anglers and, almost 8,000 fish caught, which is, if you do the math on how many people we had fish, that's 10 fish per angler across the board this year, you know?
hmm,
So as far as a tournament goes, it sucks running 200 plus anglers because, I mean, as tournament director, all you're literally
yeah.
doing is waiting on something to happen, and have to fix it. And that's okay. That's what the job is. Anybody can book a tournament, put it on, and run it. But handling the day to day stuff, that's what. But it sucks only because of how I am. I internalize so much. I stay. I get anxietized pretty easily over it because I'm just waiting. Because I don't want something to happen and me mishandle it, and then it affect y'all. And so I put a lot of pressure on myself that way. That's why it's great having Daniel or somebody travel with me because they're there to slap me around, a little bit. Um, and so I like the 180 range because I feel like we just talked about with the boat stuff. I want you to be able to not have to see another angler if you want to, if you're fishing. That's why, like when we did the launch list thing, on every body of water that I put on this year, if you look, I went as far up in the creeks until I became uncomfortable that there's going to be landlocked fish, so to speak. And that's kind of where I draw the boundary. And with launches, there is no question, is it public or private? It's 100% public. So that takes a huge burden off of a tournament director's day. And it also eliminates something that it's kind of crept in. It's always been here, but it got a little more voice the last few years of, you know, rumors and accusations slandering somebody's character
There's a
that
lot
doesn't
of
deserve
those.
it. that
Yeah,
yeah that doesn't deserve it necessarily. Like, this past event had zero tournament anglers approach me about some issues that were perceived things, and I was getting it all fourth, fifth generation information. So I start reaching out to these people that I had heard, and even what they heard was from someone else. And then I addressed the literal concerns, and there's no violations there. Well, now that information never gets made back to the 12 other people that's Kurt talked to or whomever.
yeah.
And so now that slander is still there and it's unjustifiable. And so going forward, and I'll address it, in the way that we're supposed to professionally. Communication in this series is priority. You all know I over communicate. And so when you're in a tournament, your job as a competitor is to watch out for each other's safety, watch out for the integrity of everything that happens. And if you see something or have a suspicion, if you're not comfortable approaching the angler asking about it, then you call me with every perceived violation, intentional or unintentional, perceived, whatever. If it's a rumor you've heard, call me with it. That's my job. If you call me right then, I can start investigating it on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday instead of Wednesday, Thursday when the protest period is gone, because you've got 24 hours after Sunday awards to protest something. And that's okay because we're a digital sport. You need to be able to click around and say, hey, man, y'all missed this or something like that. And not to say that everything gets undone, and not every infraction is a disqualification either. There's rules violations that you just get a penalty for. We're not going to ruin your entire fishing thing because you forgot, to bring your white light. I'll just say pull over and here's a half-hour penalty or something to keep your $1,000 weekend that you've just spent intact. Give grace where it's due, because we've shown already from the beginning of the season until now that anytime there's a violation, we handled it. We handed out the discipline, and everywhere that there's been erroneous rumor, we addressed those and sorted it out too, and handled that as well. But it's but that has to tighten up in our sport. Period. Social media is always going to be damnable, but we're not. We're still one another when we're out on the road, and so. I appreciate the communication from people, even if it's rumor mill stuff, because I have to investigate it because you never know when it's actually true. And it's disrespectful to me when you don't do that as an angler. Call me about things because this is my job. But it's also disrespectful to yourself because if you're starting rumors and carrying on or just chasing rumors, why are you doing it? Are you doing it because you want an end result to be disciplined or get the infraction corrected? Or are you just wanting to get your emotions out? Because if you're doing it to vet the system and figure out how to take care of something that happened, then by all means, call me and I'll be a part of that with you to get it all sorted out. But if you're not doing it to correct something constructively, then that's not something we want to be a part of, So.
Kind of that with rules, it, there's always there's rules and fractions that happen, but it's something that people never see. We don't ever see the what happened to somebody for it. Is there any way that you could communicate? Whether it's this might be a terrible idea, but like there were over the season, there was 10 white light. People didn't have 360 lights penalties in this, and kind of the a breakout of maybe some things that happened, so people going into next year can try to think ahead of these are the infractions that happen more than other ones that I need to bring that second white light. I need to do this. Or is there anything that you can show people to say this is how I've handled some of those things? But because it seems like they happen, but nobody ever knows, you know, what's happening.
Yeah, it's kind
Or
of
is
two-sided
that
there.
crazy? Yeah.
Well, it's a lot of check boxes and footwork that literally is just done for the sake of doing it. But I do agree and I just wrote down a note for that. I feel like, how do you say it? Presenting it as a teaching moment, you can come
Yeah.
up with a
Mhm.
list of, hey guys, here's some things to look going forward next year. Not say, hey, we had 18 white light infractions. Say, hey, make sure that you check your lighting, maybe bring a backup, move on to the next one. Give you some suggestions because the part of the problem, and this is something I learned from Bassmaster, is when you handle the discipline or an infraction or whatever, there is, like we're used to the kayak sport, it getting put out there.
Yeah.
Daniel Perry, got caught without his life jacket. He fished 2-day tournament. And the next thing you know, you're drugged down the street behind a truck on a chain. You can't know. That's grassroots stuff, and that's why we had an angler in Georgia that we disqualified for not uh, um, participating in the testing that would help clear his name in some things. So he was obstructing the investigation. So he's now banned from Georgia. Can never fish another kayak tournament again, and it's because of him not cooperating. But
Yeah.
I'll never say his name publicly because you shouldn't. He made
Yeah.
a mistake, so now he's removed, and that's what you want. You don't put a man in jail for robbing a bank and then go in every day and beat him with a club. You just let him serve his sentence out. He's removed from society and let him live, his life in peace, not harming anybody else. And not a terrible parallel, but that's just kind of how
I
it
got
is.
you.
And so
Yeah.
that's why you don't, you don't like, there were anglers that I had to take their day one limits away on Guntersville for fishing too long. And so we figured out that process because it hadn't happened before. And so we figured it out and addressed that with them. And they respectfully accepted it because they understood, totally unintentional. But you don't go public with that kind of stuff because then all
Yeah.
that does is, what it opens up on the keyboard. People who don't even fish tournaments, people who don't even own kayaks. I saw people commenting on the kayak schedule on the Bassmaster page that, they're clearly like kayakers, and so, yeah. So some of that stuff you have to put on the umbrella of professionalism. And it's not that you're not being transparent, but you're not giving the opportunity to people to be slandered, and that's something that I'm gonna pay a lot more attention to going forward. And sometimes that comes, I don't believe, like we talk about, and I make a joke all the time. I don't like rules. I don't like my alarm clock telling me to wake up. I mean, we should be able to do things on our own. But we have to have boundaries and guardrails, and I respect that type of authority. And so, but I don't believe everything that we do has to be mitigated by a rule. You can't do this, you can't do that. Just because certain things happen, you address them and then you move on from them through education, not putting more barriers around what we do. The thinner a rule book, the easier it is to navigate through it. But if you take some hyper intelligent people, it becomes easier for them to navigate around. So that's where you just got to pay attention to all of it. And so
So,
we'll just
so
keep trying to
speaking
do
of
that.
the rules, are you going to be adding any new rules for next year that we need to be aware of?
There may be a few, like literally, and some of these are just across the board with Bassmaster, having to do with competition standards. It's just from me being an angler too. There's not going to be anything that is any kind of restrictive thing that's just going to make or break a person coming to a tournament trail. Um, as far as the overall rules, we've already discussed, and I talked to AJ some. He does his rules later in the year, so I don't mind doing mine so that we can stay on board with one another as best we can. Um, I'm going to tweak the language on communication because I told you guys we got that wrong. It was too restrictive and it was an overreaction on my part of trying to make sure these perceived Bluetooth gangs don't just have free reign. And I'm not talking about any particular group. I mean people that do that. I mean I talk on the phone to people all the time when we fished. But going forward, growing this series to be more of an elevated platform as we can, we have to make sure that you're catching your own fish. You're not getting calls to come and move to go fish a community
Yeah.
hole that we found, and just some safeguards. It's safeguards, and I remove people associated with things in the past and look at, can we use this to make it where when you guys show up Friday morning, not getting to pre-fish on Guntersville because you've got a lot of experience on it, that you got just a good opportunity, removing your fact that you get to pre-fish, you're going to be able to come in and not have to compete against anything other than what's on the end of that fishing rod that your competitor has. And so that's the way I look at safeguards and parameters. It's not reactionary. I get highly pissed off at of people who try to get their own narrative put in my brain to install rules and stuff because I'm not an idiot. I can read people pretty well. And so I'm going down a rabbit hole. I'll shut up. But anyway, no, I'm going to tweak that language, Kurt, and make certain that it's understood. You all can communicate on the water. You guys can share what you're doing as long as it's voluntary and it's reciprocated. If you want to call Kurt 6 miles up the lake and say, hey man, you doing okay? Everything all right? Because he traveled from Ohio by himself. Yeah, man, I'm all good. Just out here having fun, yada, yada. His limit's uploaded. Talk briefly about your day and then move on. You're not sharing what you're doing, 6 miles apart by catching them on a chatterbait. You're not sharing that communication. And I understand there's a trust factor there too. But you also, you have to make it to where an angler is not just sitting there all day long worried about getting disqualified. Did I do something wrong? A beaver came by and squeaked at me. Was that improper communication? I'm not gonna have that anymore. So, and then from there, really, I don't see much, if anything. I'm comfortable with the pre-fishing we have in my mind's eye, because I'm that person who can only fish Friday, Saturday, or Saturday, Sunday before, because I have to work Monday through Friday at the plant, and I lay out of work. I call in sick on Friday so that I can leave Thursday at 3:30 and drive all the way to Seminole and get up early Friday morning and have about 4 hours on the water. So I can't pre-fish the other times. And then I also know there's people who can take off Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to pre-fish. So don't want to penalize it. So I mean, it's a double-edged sword. There's an impossible answer getting it right, but I'm comfortable with what we have there. It says 21 days, but if you put the math on it, it's 14 days because of your week of practice. So it's 14 days. And if we can't do that as a community on one body of water, one time a year, like the grassroots guys in Murray, I'm sure they don't have a problem, because it's 2 weeks out of the whole year that they don't get to fish that lake, So I feel like I'm comfortable with that. Yeah. So anything that's added is going to be very minimal. Shouldn't affect how you travel or pre-fish or anything. And I don't see really much that needs to be removed, because I don't want to keep making changes and everything. And then you not ever know what your rules are,
Yeah.
And so
And
I feel like,
kayak angler,
yeah,
not changing the rules constantly, because that is like,
yeah,
people don't realize how hard that is to follow all the different rules, especially when you're doing multiple series that may have something slightly different than each other.
yeah. Right. And by all means, everybody that's listening, my number, my email, my Facebook Messenger, I enjoy getting, hey, man, have you thought about this? Because you never know when that idea is the light bulb moment that changes something that can literally change our sport. I mean, it just happens, it happens that way. And so that organic communication is important, so.
Well, I'll ask, why isn't the practice like, instead of a week of, I know it's not really enforceable, but you can practice 3 days, whatever 3 days you want. If it's two the weekend before, 2 days within 2 weeks, 3 days within 2 weeks. Why hadn't anybody done that? Is it just because it's not enforceable?
It partly, but to be honest with you, and I'm not being a smart aleck because we're free, but honestly, think about this. Why do that? Like literally, you're literally just putting something on paper, like you said, that you can't enforce.
Yeah.
And so now and open this window up now. You're at work because you're the tournament director, or you're trying to just do whatever. And now you've got, Kurt Smith saying, hey, I practiced Monday, I'm coming back Thursday. Hey, I'm here Thursday, I'm gonna take off the water. Hey, I only practiced 2 days. Can I roll a day over to the next tournament? I mean, that kind of stuff's gonna and so it is. And I feel like and granted, I would be totally okay with 3 days if there were a way to not restrict it. And who knows? And that may change in the future. I mean, there's some rules changing in Bassmaster, and by no means will we ever align with the whole boat world. It just doesn't apply to us. Not everything they do. But having that years and years of tournament management experience, we get the benefit of that too, because I get to hear what they do. Like we just had that big long Bassmaster leadership meeting today, and I'm listening to their structure and changes that are coming for their side. None of them really apply to us, but I'm just sitting here seeing what they're doing in their little tweaks, and some of them are major, some of them are subtle, but I do. There was a guy, Keith Martin, who fishes local with us. He come up with a great plan. Maybe make it where practice is Saturday, Sunday, take 3 days off, and then open it up 2 more, and then leave the lake off limits, on Friday. Well, I don't want to do that because that might be the only day you even get to go scan.
Vacation time.
Yeah, I mean, so I feel like as kayakers, we can go down a rabbit hole of scenarios so much because we are so flexible in what we do. It's really, really hard. And yeah, like what we talked about with the ramps, the guys in Alabama, just they didn't understand that, again, like I said, I'm not a reactionary person. If I do it, it's so that we can benefit from past actions of some sort. And so that's why I do painstakingly make sure ramps are everywhere. Ramps are up creek arms. Like right now, I spent 3 hours the other day talking to people in Oklahoma on Lake Tenkiller to see how far I can get up in that creek arm so that the river people have what they like, or what was it? Josh Srinko, you got to tune into his podcast, that Smalley Talk.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. He, that what they call them, wet boys. That's what they
Yeah,
call themselves. Wet
whenever he
boys.
was on KBN, he lost me with the Wet Boys thing. I don't
Yeah.
know about that.
Yeah, but it's cool. He said, somebody asked him, he said, man, where are you guys from? Because you sound like, what was they called him? Yankee skateboarders from California or something. Cause he's got that kind of bro vibe and stuff, but it was funny, but the podcast is good. But yeah. And so we talked about that kind of water opening up, and I want the wet boys. That's what I'm going to stick you Alabama Creekers, Daniel, is the wet boys.
Oh boy, there's a lot of them.
Just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. But so yeah,
All right.
that Kurt, there's not going to be much, dude. Seriously, yeah.
Good deal. Good deal.
All right. Next tournament's May 18th and 19th, Lake Gunnersville. That's like late post spawn, shad spawn, starting to like right at the beginning. It depends on time of the year, but Tennessee River, where they're first getting off the ledge onto the either mid depth or right onto the ledges, and they're really stupid. So I think this is like a sneaky, perfect time to go to Gunnersville, personally.
Yeah, like we talked about, all of us. There's probably only a month or two out of the whole year that you can't just go to Gunnersville and catch pretty good fish.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just that body of water's healthy. The eelgrass sucks, but they're working on it, and they don't have. It's going to be a long term. I don't think it's going to happen in
How
the
do you
next
get rid
couple
of
of
it?
years. Well, they're working. I spoke with the water initiative they have down here a couple, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and they're working with, like, TVA has kind of removed itself from it because they'll just burn it. They'll just be like, we're getting rid of it because it's affecting the barges and the locks and everything. So they told them, here, go ahead, you guys figure this out. We want you to let us know how we can help. So that was good. But they're reached out to other states that have eelgrass biologists and find out how to maybe target that specifically instead of, killing it all, just kind of, target it. So right now there is no solution, but they are talking with other states that have it to figure out what they do. So yeah,
If kayak
Gunnersville's
guys have a
always
problem
been
with it, yeah, they can go get a Hobie because you don't have a problem with that Mirage drive.
That's right. Sure don't. Sure don't. Like I tell everybody, I don't mind the eelgrass because I learned fishing Gunnersville as the eelgrass was coming in. So, I don't like that I can't chuck a chatterbait and hit a rock and then start reeling. I have to fish 6 feet off the bank now. But I've learned my little how I can kind of punch through it, so to speak. And Tokyo rig. I think Tokyo rig does great in it. But so yeah, but like you said, man, it's any time of year you can fish that place and do pretty well. We're working on the GSM product tournament, you've done well in.
Yeah, February.
But yeah, I think that's probably going to have to change from February. It was set February the 11th, but that changed this morning. So
really?
I don't know. Yeah. It's just there's a lot going on in Gunnersville. It's a hub, especially softball. So that's got to. All the hotels and stuff are booked and the park's being used. There's no sense in having a boat tournament there. So they're working on it. But,
Still
hopefully in the
pre-spawn?
next couple of weeks. Dude, right now it could be, freaking fall. Who knows? We may have it the week before Spro tournament. I don't know. But, yeah.
My juice hole is only good pre-spawn, so I do good there every year because I got one good spot pre-spawn. But after that, they're gone.
Yeah. I fished the same 2 spots on Chick, Gunnersville, and Seminole just because, that's what I fished when I competed a lot. And so if I fish a Bass Nation or something, I'm in the same 2 holes all the time. I don't travel anywhere. If the fish aren't there, they're just not there because I'm not, not going to open up that door, which I know you saw Dwayne's doing a great thing with Tourney X. After 5 days, locations are scrubbed from the event. If something comes up down the road and we need to check something, he can open it up for us and we can do whatever. So yeah, it's the optics of it all. It is. And so you wish you could trust everybody, but then there again, I mean, not everybody knows me well enough to trust me with stuff, like I truly, not that I'm a saint, but I feel comfortable fishing any body of water across the country because I have a judging practice in place where I'm not going to remember where you fished, but you know, I don't expect everybody to trust that. And so that's why I don't do it. But yeah, but it's a good thing. Dwayne's always plucking away and open and receptive to. I told him today, I said, is there a way when we hit the lottery and we're able to get everything we want in Tourney X, because we'll pay for it, how to extract all the 20-inch fish out of a tournament on an Excel sheet, you know? And so I'm without having to click paste all the time. But anyway. So yeah, but Gunnersville's going to be a smash fest again, like you said.
Oh yeah.
People will be able to spread out and do whatever they want to do.
Yep. We'll go ahead and go through these last two pretty quick. July 27th, 28th, back on Susquehanna. This one's further north. Isn't that what it is?
It's sorry, got a funny text, but it's the same exact water we just fished.
Oh, is it? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And I mean,
we're out of Lewisburg. Typically, Harrisburg was hosting things, but we developed a relationship with Lewisburg, and it's further north. So some of the water that people have fished historically is now, you could still access it, but you won't be able to make it back upriver, and you have to take out at a legal launch of some sort. And so you wouldn't be able to make it back up to the Lewisburg area that we use in this tournament. But it's a different time of year. You know, we're going in July. Had I known what October was going to do, this one would be in October too. But as AJ and I was going over the schedules and everything, he introduced me to Shreveport, and so that's where, you know, Susquehanna again. You know, we talked about it just a little bit before, so I won't waste time going back over it. But that Visitors Bureau was over the moon over everything you all did to promote and hype it, and they're pumped. And if we could sign a 10-year contract with them tomorrow, I bet, if we wanted to. And so we'll see how long it stays in rotation. We may take out 1 year and then come back. So, but that one's something that everybody, and it's also like the fishing may not be as stellar because of the time of year, but it's going to be a lot easier to travel for a lot of people in July than the October, where it's the end of the year kind of thing. And so that's what led us into Caddo, was us figuring out our schedules together. He introduced, you know, we share chamber contacts with one another, and he shared that one with me, and reached out to them. And from what Adam Reiser tells me that I trust with my bank account pretty much, that's the place to go in the fall, is Caddo Bistineau. So
really?
Yeah, it's just, you look at the KBF when it was there, the Hobies that have been there historically March, and then they had their TOC there, and that weather front came through. But that's the place to go in the fall. There, Lanier, and there's one other lake in the southeast that's a phenomenal fall fishery. Hartwell's good all time of the year, just about. Every place sucks in the winter, but Hartwell's very good in the fall too. They're deep blueback herring lakes, you know. So Caddo Bistineau, being where it's at, is good. So we're excited to get down
Which
there.
One's going to win, Caddo or Bistineau?
I don't know.
Which one should I go fish?
You had to ask Kurt and them that.
Kurt doesn't give up anything.
I'll say Bistineau. I'll say Bistineau.
Bistineau. All right. I like it.
We should have asked Guillermo.
All right. So say what?
We should have asked Guillermo when he was on.
Yeah,
I should have. Yeah. I should have asked him on the spot. Yeah, he's done well there, to say the least.
Yeah.
All right, so got the schedule 2024. Where can everybody go online to sign up, check it out, and read the rules and get any other information they need for it?
You go to the Bassmaster.com site, and then you just click the tournament tab, click kayak, and there it'll bring you to the kayak resource page. And then you click on there, you can download the rules. The schedule's not posted in a graphic yet because it's all 2023 stuff, but you can find that on an article link. That's where I pulled that graphic from and edited it. And then our Facebook page. Our Facebook page, most of the time commenting is off because that's an educational page. It's not a forum to get on there and do whatever. Now, we will comment on some stuff, but I'll turn it off if it gets out of hand because, like I said, it's not there for any kind of banter really or anything like that. Do some well wishing if you want to. But it's there for an information page because not everybody clicks. The one right above that picture right there is scheduled. And so, yeah, but yeah, that's where we find it all. And then, you know, obviously eat right there, that one. So obviously email is the best way to get everything answered you need. so that I have a running record of it, and then it's not lost in a Facebook Messenger or a text or whatever. So, but yeah,
Sounds
that's it,
good.
man.
Well,
I'm
we appreciate
excited
you
and
being on, and yeah.
You all made it happen this year, dude. I appreciate it. We gave away, almost 163 grand in just 5 events, and so we'll continue to tweak it and work on it and keep suggestions coming, because I write them down and vet them, and that's how we land on a series that's truly out there for y'all to fish.
24 is going to be even better, bud.
I appreciate you
That's
guys.
right.
Thank you very much.
All right.
All right. Thanks, Steve. We'll see y'all again next week.
Y'all have a good
Later.
Y'all have a good Thanksgiving. See you.